Okay, so imagine this, right? You're in a part of the world where things seem to be getting better, like life expectancy is going up, people are living longer. But then there's this hidden, almost like a hidden trend, something unsettling going on beneath the surface.
Hmm, I'm intrigued. What kind of trend are we talking about?
Well, it's what they call deaths of despair. It's about people dying from like suicide, drugs, alcohol, that sort of thing. And it's a real concern, especially in developed countries.
Deaths of despair. That's a heavy phrase, and definitely reflects something much deeper going on in society.
Exactly right. And that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating. We're looking at this Harvard study, and get this, it links religious participation to a lower risk of these
Now,
deaths.
that's an interesting connection for sure. Religion and deaths of despair. Where do we even begin to unpack that?
Well, we're going way beyond just the numbers, okay? We're going to look at all this through the lens of, ancient wisdom, like from the Bible.
Oh, wow, bringing in some ancient
Yeah.
wisdom alongside modern research. I like it. That's a unique approach for sure.
Yeah. And it gets even more interesting, trust me. So, this Harvard study, right? They followed over 100,000 people for 16 years.
Wow, 16 years. That's a long time to track. That's a serious commitment to research right there.
Yeah, massive undertaking. Anyway, they found out that women who were going to religious services at least once a week, regularly, their risk of dying from one of these deaths of despair was like 68% lower.
68%?
Yeah.
That's huge. What about the guys?
Yeah, so for men it was a 33% reduction. Still a big difference, right?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, those numbers definitely make you stop and think.
Exactly. It wasn't just like, oh, a small change. These were big differences, and it really makes you wonder what's actually going on here.
Right. What could be driving such a strong correlation?
Well, the study, it suggests a few things, right? And one of the big ones is the whole social support thing that you get from being part of a religious community. It makes you think, doesn't it?
It does. Go on, walk me through it.
Okay, so picture it. You've got these regular gatherings, shared meals maybe, people looking out for each other, mentoring each other, all that good stuff. Even just like knowing that there are people you can turn to when times get tough, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, totally. Having that safety net, that support system.
It all adds up to this feeling of belonging, like you're part of something. And well, we all need that, don't we? It's like, what's that saying? No man is an island.
Exactly. We're social creatures at our core. We need those connections to thrive.
We're not meant to go through life alone. And when those connections are missing, well, it takes a toll. It can really impact our mental and emotional well-being. Maybe even make people more vulnerable to despair.
It's like the foundation starts to crumble a bit when you don't have those strong connections to support you. Makes sense. But it's not just about, having people around, is it? I mean, there's got to be more to it than that.
You're right, you're right. This study, it also talks about how faith can provide moral frameworks and coping mechanisms, ways to deal with the tough stuff.
Okay, so like a set of guidelines for living and tools to navigate the challenges that life throws your way.
Exactly, because religion often provides this sense of meaning, like a purpose in life. And this can be, well, incredibly powerful, especially when you're facing suffering or hardship, things like that.
It's like having a roadmap, or at least a compass, when you're navigating through difficult times.
Yeah.
It may not tell you every turn to take, but it gives you a sense of direction.
And it gives you hope, too, which, let's face it, we all need a little hope sometimes, don't we?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
especially when facing those bigger existential questions. So it's not necessarily about having all the answers, but having a framework to grapple with those big questions, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just about like navigating your own inner world, right? A lot of religions, they encourage you to actually do things. Like they emphasize moderation or helping others or being grateful for what you have instead of always wanting more. And you know what?
What's that?
Modern psychology is finding out that that's actually pretty good advice for anyone.
It's true. It's like they were ahead of their time or something. It's like think about mindfulness, compassion, gratitude.
Right,
All these things,
right.
they're like practices that have been around for centuries in a lot of these traditions.
Yeah, like ancient wisdom.
Exactly. And now we've got the research to back it up. It's really quite remarkable when you think about it.
Yeah, it's like these ancient traditions, they kind of stumbled onto these really powerful tools for living a good life long before we had, fancy scientific methods to study it all.
It makes you wonder, what else don't we know, right? What other ancient wisdom is out there waiting to be rediscovered?
It's amazing to think about. But hey, speaking of ancient wisdom, this is where our deep dive, it takes like a really fascinating turn because our source material, it doesn't just, stop at this Harvard
Oh,
study.
it goes further.
It goes further. It connects these findings to actual passages from the Bible.
Now that is fascinating. It's like bridging these two worlds, science and spirituality.
I know, right? So cool. Okay, are you ready for this? So there's this one passage, Hebrews 10.2425, and it says, "And let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another." I mean, come on, it's like a direct call to action,
It
right?
really is. Don't isolate yourselves. Support each other. Build each other up. It's amazing how relevant that message still is today.
Totally. Especially with everything we were just talking about, how important social support is. And it's not just about being in the same room together. It's about actively encouraging each other.
Contributing to the well-being of the community as a whole. It's a powerful message, for sure.
Yeah, it's like they knew back then, that for a community to really thrive, its members need to feel seen and supported. But it doesn't stop there. Check this out. Matthew 18.20. Jesus says, "For where two or three are gathered in my name, there am I among them."
Wow. That sends chills down my spine. There's just something so powerful about that image.
Right.
It speaks to that deep human need for connection, not just with each other, but with something bigger than ourselves.
And that feeling of divine presence, it can be incredibly powerful, especially when you're, dealing with despair.
It's that beacon of hope in the darkness,
Yeah.
that sense that you're not alone.
Exactly. Okay, ready for one more?
Hit me with it.
Proverbs 17.22. "A cheerful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones." It might seem kind of simple at first, right? But it's actually really profound, especially now.
Oh, I see where you're going with this. The mind-body connection. We're finally starting to understand scientifically how important that connection really is.
Right, like how our mental and emotional states, they actually affect our physical health.
And vice versa. It's a two-way street. Like, think about stress for a second.
Okay, yeah, stress, everyone's stressed.
Right. And when you're chronically stressed, when you have that crushed spirit, your body is pumping out all these hormones, cortisol being one of the big ones.
Cortisol, right.
And over time, that takes a toll. It can increase your risk of all sorts of physical health
As
problems.
heart disease, right, I've heard that.
Exactly.
Mm.
Even depression. On the flip side, you've got positive emotions, right? Joy, gratitude, that cheerful heart the proverb talks about.
Yeah, yeah.
Those positive emotions can actually trigger beneficial physiological changes in the body. Things like boosting your immune system, even promoting healing.
Wow, it's like that little proverb. It's like this tiny little nugget of ancient wisdom, but it's so powerful and so relevant to what we're learning today.
It really is remarkable. It speaks volumes about the wisdom and the insight of those who came before us.
It really is amazing when you think about how much wisdom is packed into like these ancient texts. It makes you wonder though, what about people who, maybe they're not particularly religious? Does that mean they just miss out on all these benefits?
Oh, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's one that researchers are, really digging into these days.
Because it seems like it all comes down to belonging, meaning, purpose. Those big things.
Right, exactly. So then the question becomes, could you find those things, that sense of belonging, that purpose, outside of a traditional religious setting? Could a community built around something else offer those same benefits?
So interesting. So it's not necessarily about like the specific beliefs or rituals. It's more about the human needs that religion just happens to fulfill really well a lot of the time.
You got it. The need for connection, for meaning, for feeling like you're part of something bigger than yourself, those are universal.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like finding your tribe, right? No matter where they are.
I like that. Finding your tribe.
Yeah.
It's about finding your people, the ones who get you, who you can connect with on a deeper level.
It really is. And it makes you think, right? Like, what would be the secular equivalent of some of these practices we've been talking about? The ones that promote well-being, Like,
Yeah.
is there a secular version of prayer or a way to cultivate that cheerful heart that science can get behind?
Now, those are questions I'd love to explore further. It's like we've uncovered more paths to explore than, hard and fast answers.
Yeah. Well, hey, that's the beauty of a good deep dive, isn't it? Always leaves you with more to ponder. And we've definitely covered a lot of ground today. We started off talking about deaths of despair, which, let's be honest, is a pretty heavy topic.
It is, but such an important one to talk about.
Absolutely. And then we got into this this really surprising link with religious participation, we explored all these potential reasons why that might be: social support, moral frameworks, even the whole mind body connection.
And let's not forget about that ancient wisdom. Tapping into those timeless truths, that was really something.
It really was. And you know what? As always, we want to hear from you, our listeners. What resonated with you? What questions are you still pondering? Let's keep this conversation going. Reach out and tell us what you think. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking those tough questions, and keep diving deep into, well, the mysteries of life, right?